I always get nervous doing these, even though I pretend that I'm not nervous doing it. So we'll save for questions for the end of this. But I did have that glass of wine to take the edge off beforehand. So, if I had two, I'd answer too many questions. What I decided to do, I always try to do these things with a great deal of intention, even if I veer off of it. But what I decided to do is sometimes I talk really and explain the work a lot, and sometimes I want to make sure that I'm not filling in too many gaps for you so that you have to deal with it yourself. I'm happy to answer any question anybody has at the end. So I'm thinking of this because is really, rather than an artist talk, I'm I'm holding this book, which I'm going to read from in a minute. I'm thinking of it as a kind of, like in a book, a set of acknowledgements, a preface, and a few footnotes. And then any other questions you have will be other footnotes, but that's really sort of how I'm looking at it. First, let me do the acknowledgements. I am so happy to be working with Talley and Beth and Meredith and Trini, and we work as a team, and everybody works together to make these exhibitions happen. They allow me to after we meet and say what I'm going to do, and then I change my mind and say, no, I'm going to do a wall drawing on the back, and I send them an image, and they say, okay. I say it's going to make a mess, and they say, okay. And that's been our relationship all along. I also want to acknowledge that I work in other ways collaboratively. Central to this collaboration will be the poem that I'm going to read by Dean Young, and I'll talk a little bit about that in my preface coming up. But Dean, of course, is important to this. At the foundry is at my studio that makes the bronzes. I've had actually the person who runs that foundry was my student at Austin College, so I've had a long relationship with that person, and he and his wife, Ken King and Ketria Scott, make the bronzes, with me, and we really, it's a little like playing in a band, so they're a key part of it, and I have to acknowledge them. This show, I've had other things that inspire me. I have what I'll just refer to as the muse with the shoes from down there, who helped me out with the shoes, and other people who've sort of inspired me or worked with me and really been important to me on this show. This is the third of 3 shows centered around, so the other galleries, Hiram Butler Gallery in Houston and Anthony Meyer Gallery in San Francisco, I need to acknowledge too. So that's more acknowledgments than I usually make, but that really is, I was thinking to myself today that it takes a village to make these so that I can be the village idiot and just have ideas, okay? Like this allows me to be the one who just goes, why the hell not do this? And then, it also has that other, I was thinking about this, and it has that other part of me that also has to later on edit what the idiot wants to do. But it allows me to engage that idiot by having this whole village of people to work with. Okay. These 3 shows, which happened over the last 6 months, about August was the first one, September, and then this show, are from this poem by Dean Young, a brilliant poet of my generation. Dean may show up tonight, he may not. He's at UT now. He's been here for a few years. I ran into Dean a few years ago. Many of you, anybody who follows my work knows there's a lot of literature references in my work. I was the Texas Artist of the Year, the state legislature in 2013, and I went to the celebration, but they choose the Texas Poet Laureate and the Texas whatever, the musician, and Dean and I were back there, and we hit a conversation about poetry and literature and art, and we really hit it off. And I went home and I thought to myself, that was really great. So I emailed him and I said, you want to do something together? So we started an exchange. It took a year and he sent me new poems. Oh, this is his brand new book, by the way. It just came out in December. Shock by Dean Young. He sent me poems. I sent him drawings or objects. I made an object out of his collected poems had just come out, a book called Bender. I made an object out of his collected poems. It kind of went back and forth in the mail for a while. And it started to, I thought it was probably maybe losing momentum. Maybe I was not hitting the right notes. And so, there are other things that are going on in my life. And I thought, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so I started a set of drawings called, and I sent him the picture, and they looked somewhat like this. So they were the first set in this series. Each of these 3 shows had a set of these drawings, but they're all different sets, and they all do different things. And I sent him the set, and I said, I'm just trying to figure out how to draw a circle. And I got this, email back on, like instantly. Oh, I'm inspired, how to draw a circle. And about 2 weeks later, I got this great poem back from Dean called How to Draw a Circle. So let me read that poem, and then we'll go from there. How to Draw a Circle. After we get closer and the frogs quiet, my dog says, "See how the frog quiets when approached? It's cooling off as it gets dark, as if the earth has realized light equals heat. We come to a stick pretending to be a snake. Is it not wise for a snake to pretend to be a stick? I keep thinking back to the mean things said at the meeting, some from my own mouth. How $40 just vanished from my pocket. How I doubted that my brother was going to make it the whole way across the bridge. My dog has stopped and is looking at me with the moon in each eye. This is the part of our walk by the yucca festooned with Xmas lights and half a mannequin sticking out of the ground, where once I heard they filmed a commercial for mayonnaise. When my dog asks what I've learned, nothing, I don't say, which is the same as saying it. Good, says my dog. Before enlightenment, walk the dog. After enlightenment, walk the dog, as we turn toward the blue door of our own house. So anyway, I got that poem and I thought, oh, this is great. Taking an image and turning it into a journey and a biography, but a kind of constructed biography. And so that was the takeoff for the shows. One show, the first one, was a kind of seriously proposed, sort of orderly thing that said, how about this? Went back to some of my old ideas and said, how about this as an order? A different order, but it was very much like an architect's proposal. The second show, which was in San Francisco, was the first physical manifestation of that show. Each one had its own set of drawings. It had a quieter set of drawings, and it was like, okay, how about, is this order? You know, like these things are now physical. The first one was mostly wall pieces. The second one, each one of them had an altered book in it. The second one was almost all sculptures except for this set of wall drawings. And one sculpture started to break apart or fall apart a little bit more. This show is about the drawings are a little bit more, though the syntax of them is probably the most poet-like in terms of how they read from left to right and, you know, in lines. But they start to fall, they have a lot more tension and drama in them. The sculptures here on this side start to fall apart, and then things like start to move forward to a different way of having a different order. So that's that. That's the part of the preface. Now a couple footnotes, maybe just only one, and then I'll take questions. Spill, what do I mean by spill? I was thinking to myself that I was thinking about the second law of thermodynamics, you know, and entropy and the way in which things go from order to disorder. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, okay. Then I start to do a little research about it because, and I really am very excited because I find out that that the terms order and disorder, there's a lot of argument now in physics about the second law of thermodynamics because the terms order and disorder refer to so much to the viewer's point of view that actually what might be perceived as disorder actually has the potential of many new orders. And I'm going, oh God, instinctively somehow I knew this was going to happen. And the most classic representation that's used as common vernacular of the second law of thermodynamics is a spill. The idea that if you spill milk out of a cup, it doesn't return to the cup, you can't get it all back in the, so it's an irreversible process. But that only assumes a certain kind of order. And so I like the idea that there was different disorders. Then very recently I was reading another book and I came across this quote from a Wallace Stevens poem called Connoisseur of Chaos. And it's A, violent order is disorder, and B, a great disorder is an order. These two things are one. So I'm thinking, that part of spill interested me. I also like the fact that there's a degree, we're back to the village idiot thing, but there's a degree of confession in all of my work and a lot of the work I'm interested in, but it's kind of theatricized. I allow myself to be this, slightly idiotic, romantic person extending these ideas out into the world, and then I have this critic that has to do it. So there's a kind of spilling, confessional kind of component to it. I think that's probably all I'm going to say. I'll read one more poem if you want, which I think is funny, because I think there's a lot of funny in my work. And so if you think some things are funny, that's okay. That's kind of meant a little bit, okay? Like it's not all meant to be serious. So Talley was at a show I did once, by the way, where I was at a museum in St. Louis called the Laumeier, in which in one of the rooms I put in 2 reviews of my own behavior as pieces. I'd made them out of these. You may remember those follow like these text pieces I have done, and so I had 2 reviews of my own behavior. I like this book because it's got a poem to the critics on the end of it. So I'm going to read this poem to the critics. To the critics. My helmet is almost done, and when it is, I will hurtle through outer space until you won't be able to differentiate me from any other celestial debris. So you will have to respect me, because I could obliterate your moon. So there'd be no tides, and your surfboard would become even more ornamental, although you'd still have your orange kayak. In the 70s, Kayak was a great poetry magazine, editor George Hitchcock. People have woefully lost touch with the surreal pirate radio signal of their own hearts, but not everyone is dead. Have you ever tried to stand up on a bicycle? Have you ever tried to stand up on a bicycle juggling lemons? Have you ever tried to stand up on a bicycle made of glass juggling lemons, trees, while a huge rectangle of darkness approacheth on wheelchair wheels? Sure you have. Questions? All right, we have somebody ask me. You can ask me. Come up to me if you want to. Thank you.